Hello everyone, Prime here. You probably think that Hera is an evil, vindictive, manipulative little witch, don't you? Who hates children and women alike. However, today I'm going to attempt to change your mind about that. So let's go over some of the worst things that she's done first. Polytechnos and Aedeon proclaimed that they loved each other so much more than Hera and Zeus loved each other. This was considered to be hubris and angered the gods. As such, Hera commissioned Discordia to right these wrongs. Polytechnos rapes Aedeon's sister, whilst Aedeon serves Polytechnos his own son. Once things get a bit more heated between the couple, Discordia turns the two of them into birds. You could argue that that might have been a bit of an extreme approach, but most of the gods have no patience for hubris, so this can be explainable in that way. She distracted Zeus during the Trojan War so that it could be extended because she had a vested interest in the outcome. This caused countless unneeded human deaths, as well as a few extra god injuries here and there, and she did this purely out of her anger at Paris because Paris did not side with her during the choice between herself, Athena, and Aphrodite. So yes, she did this over an apple. However petty you think Aphrodite is for actually winning the apple, you have to remember that Athena and Hera were also quite petty to even waste time and energy in partaking in this contest. Next up, we have Vulcan's birth. Hera was jealous of Zeus's conception of Athena, and so tried to replicate it. She was successful in producing a child, as she is, after all, the goddess of childbirth. However, Vulcan was deformed, nasty, and fairly disgraceful, especially for the goddess of childbirth. So, for reasons of pride and disgust, she discarded Vulcan. A baby. A defenseless baby that just entered the world. Ouch. Her anger towards women who slept with Zeus was also quite legendary and is one of the main reasons why people don't like Hera too much. She was so jealous at Io that she had Argus watch over him with 100 eyes so that Zeus could not interfere or help Io in any way, shape or form. With Selene, she had Zeus reveal to Selene his true form, and she was disintegrated by the majesty of Zeus' brilliance, shall we say. She also then took out this rage on Bacchus, Zeus' son, with Selene, and had the Titans destroy him. Castillo loved Zeus very much, and was turned into a bear by Hera. There are also several other examples, but I think you get the picture. However, Hera was the goddess of marriage and childbirth, as I said. She didn't even necessarily want to marry Zeus in the first place. Zeus had his ways and eventually had the marriage arranged his way and got Hera that way through underhanded tactics, shall we say. And despite all of Zeus's sleeping around and playing with other women, Hera did not once cheat on Zeus. She always maintained faith in her relationship with the thunder god and stayed true to him. It is true that she did have very aggressive means of controlling her anger at Zeus's constant betrayals, but these were typically the only times you could see Hera doing vile, cruel, evil things. The Greeks still saw Hera as a being worthy of prayer and recognition, and this was for good reason. In our current world, the US marriage rate is about 6.9 for every 1,000 people, and the divorce rate is about 3.2 for every 1,000 people. There are over 323 million people living in the United States. You can do the maths, that's not my thing, but you'll know that that's a lot of people getting divorced every year. So for Hera to somehow maintain her marriage whilst her husband slept with every other mortal woman, or even immortal woman under the sun? Yeah, Hera deserves some points for that. She was also very physically attractive, you can't take that away from her, and she protected women during childbirth. She even forgave Hercules and let him marry one of her daughters, and was willing to aid unknown, lost, or perhaps scared children. You see, when Hercules was very young enough to be sustained in a motherly fashion, Hera sustained him. Unfortunately, though, Hercules may have bitten down too hard on one of her womanly regents, and the Milky Way was created as a result, and also Hera ordered the child to be taken away from her. But this just shows how much of a caring deity she was. She was genuinely genuinely a good person. Hera even also attempted to change some of the inequalities that existed in ancient Greek times by having a festival held in her honor. This allowed young, unmarried women to partake in events such as a foot race, and they could even sit among the crowds of Zeus's sanctuary and watch boys' and men's events. Married women had no such freedoms, and if they tried to enter Zeus's sanctuary, they faced potential death. Ultimately, I see Hera's tendency to take out her extreme anger, vengeance upon the women that Zeus slept around with and their sons and daughters as merely just one of her character flaws rather than a representation of her being an evil goddess. People can do crazy things when under certain influences such as alcohol, drugs, or, in Hera's case, jealousy. Jealousy is very powerful. And whilst I don't condone her actions, I don't think that those actions condemn her and remove the good necessarily that she also put into the world. And remember, a lot of the Greek gods were flawed in certain ways, even though they were gods, divine. And to be fair, so far as I've seen from the Greek gods, almost every one of them has a very damning trait about them. From the more obvious ones, such as Zeus and Poseidon's, to the more subtle, like Mercury. All of the gods had flaws which you could look at and say, they're not quite the character that I thought they were, or they're not quite a good, morally correct character. I think Hera gets the worst end of the stick purely because she attacks children and women, and that it's easy to vilify someone who goes after the extremely weak or vulnerable, the perceived extremely weak or vulnerable. But I don't think it's necessarily fair considering what her fellow deities have been doing. Also, I think part of it too is just purely the fact that Hera doesn't really have any in-game sort of representation of her character herself, i.e. she's not a goddess in Smite. So there's also that extra level of not being able to connect to her, and because she's such a monstrous person, she's a lot harder to forgive, I think, for a lot of people. I mean, take Daji, for example. Daji has a very nice fan base, but in her mythology, she's one of the most monstrous and immoral goddesses, or gods, outright. In Smite. But in Smite, like, she's very lovable, so there you go. Same thing with... No, it's not the same thing with Loki, but same thing with the Morrigan. So there you go. So that was my opinion. Is Hera really not as evil as everyone makes her out to be? Or is she truly the monster that everyone says? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comment section below and share the video. The more comments, the merrier. And leave a like if you enjoyed the video, as it always helps out. So until the next video, have a very good day. I've been Prime, and thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in a few. Bye bye.